If you're new to espresso, welcome. And also, I'm sorry, because the world of coffee and espresso in particular is full of misinformation and old superstitions. Little lies that are based in tradition, so-called intuition, or sometimes even good old-fashioned corporate greed. These are the myths that I see repeated most often online and overhear in conversations that, unfortunately, I have no business interrupting. Honestly, I can't believe that some of these are still making the rounds. I don't want you getting tripped up by them, but more importantly, I just don't want to hear them over and over, so let's jump into my first and favorite myth. The fun thing about this myth is we all know who's to blame. Starbucks began training its baristas that shots had to be poured, thrown over ice, or doused with milk within about 30 seconds or they would quote-unquote die. The flavors would go off and the coffee would be irrevocably ruined. There's really no scientific basis for this whatsoever. Coffee is full of volatile compounds that do dissipate over time while sitting in the cup, but this takes more on the order of 10 to 30 minutes before it makes any real difference. Even then, no amount of milk or toffee nut syrup is really going to save you unless you also believe that a blindfold saves you from a speeding train. At best, it's a way to stress the importance of freshness. At worst, it's an act of anxiety-inducing psychological warfare intended to push baristas to produce as many drinks per minute as possible. Either way, you at home, without the Green Mermaid looking down upon you, do not need to worry about this. Pull your shot, take your time, and sip slowly, but loudly. Okay, so there are things labeled espresso roast, but that means about as much as going to the store and seeing a tenderloin labeled certified gluten-free. Generally, espresso roasts or blends tend to be on the darker side. Historically, going all the way back to the origins of coffee roasting in the 15th century and well into the mid-1900s, where we find the origins of espresso as we know it, coffee was almost always roasted pretty dark. Largely, this was simply cultural tradition and preference, but darker roasts also happen to be much more forgiving when it comes to pulling espresso. More roasting makes for more porous coffee, which makes it much easier to extract a concentrate. That said, with the excellent modern grinders we have today, you can pull espresso with any coffee you please. High pressure is a fundamental part of espresso, so surely more pressure should be better, right? Well, no. In fact, more pressure can often make things far worse. The machines you'll most often find bragging about 14 or 16 bar pressure are plasticky, cheaply made machines with pressurized baskets that were produced with no real concern for making good coffee. To put it simply, hitting your puck with a gajillion bar pressure doesn't help you get more stuff out, but it does do a great job of creating uneven flow and channeling. You wouldn't use 300 foot-pounds of torque on a bolt that called for 30, and you wouldn't laminate your croissants with a steamroller. Be gentle with your espresso, please. This is an oldie but a goodie. In short, Crema tells you one thing, that your beans are relatively fresh. That's all. It doesn't tell you if the beans were any good, if they were roasted well, if the shot was pulled to a reasonable recipe, or really anything else. You can pull a shot with beautiful Crema that tastes horrible. Don't believe me? Watch this. Oh God, what did you... Believe me now? Crema also just isn't very tasty, even when the shot is great. It's just coffee foam loaded with all the suspended microfine particles that made it through the filter. Take a spoon and try it on its own sometime. This is why I don't really understand drinks like the long black, which preserve the Crema on top, but I'm not trying to start beef with the Australians. At least, not today. Here's a shot where I tamp lightly, and here's one where I was essentially begging to sprain my wrist. Do you see a difference? Me neither. The reality is that it just doesn't take all that much force to reach the point where the coffee is as compacted as it can be, and that's definitely less than 30 pounds. If you tamp light enough, it is possible to stop short of fully compacting the puck, but even then, it's possible to pull a perfectly good shot of espresso, just maybe with a little more variability. So, apply a reasonable amount of force until you don't feel any more give, and much more importantly, ensure your tamp is level. Or hit two birds with one stone and get a level, calibrated tamp like this one from Weber Workshops, and never think about tamping again. And finally, a moment of silence for all those baristas who developed carpal tunnel trying to tamp through the bar. Now, with the big bad myths out of the way, let's look at the bright side. Luckily, today we have more research and data about espresso than ever before, from both universities and home scientists alike. If there was an enlightenment era for coffee, we're living in it. And I don't mean how coffee houses played a role in the enlightenment. You get it, we're living through peak coffee. So, go out there, dodge the old pitfalls, and enjoy some great espresso. For more coffee knowledge and experiments, tap subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. Oh, and secret sixth myth, coffee always tastes better in Italy. It tastes better because you're on vacation. In Italy.